Welcome everyone to Jaden's Jam. I'm your host Jaden Goss, and today we're talking about House of the Dragon, episode 10, The Black Queen. Damn, this was a fantastic episode. And God, okay, so of course there's a few things that they changed from Fire and Blood to the show, but I always come back to, and I will say I was initially annoyed at some of the choices in this episode, but I've now watched it twice, and honestly, after watching it again, I just don't care. I don't care about the changes. Number one, Fire and Blood, as I've said every single review, I think. I just want to make this clear. Fire and Blood is not a first hand account of what happened during the dance. It is three separate sources who were second hand sources during the events of this era, this story. So they didn't, it's not POVs. This show is giving you basically POVs, just not inside their head like you would get in a book. But it's as close as you can get in a show. So honestly, it's not an issue for me. I absolutely love. So I'm just going to start off with it because it's been the scene that I've been waiting for since this first season was announced, because I figured they were gonna do it. I didn't know if it was gonna be an episode 9 thing or an episode 10, but I knew it was gonna happen near the end of the season. Was Shipbreaker Bay, was Storm's End, was Lucerys and Arax being killed by Aemond and Vagar, and it lived up to my expectations. I like adding a little bit of nuance to this scene. You know, in the book, it talks about it like Aemond straight up murdered Lucerys without any kind of feeling, or what, like cold blooded murder. And so I like this change to where, you know, people are saying it's an accident, and I've watched it 2 times now. I don't consider it an accident. I think people are extrapolating accident from this more so than like what did Aemond expect was going to happen? You know, he's chasing down Arax and Lucerys. You know, his dragon is 3 times the size of Lucerys, maybe more. Um, I don't know the exact size difference, like mathematically, but Vagar is fucking huge. Biggest dragon in Westeros because Balerion's dead. So, what did he expect to happen? He's chasing this poor kid down. Do you guys really think that it was that this is not what he wanted? Maybe subconsciously. I mean, the dude is begging for Lucerys's eye in in Storm's End, in the keep. So I don't see it as an accident. I think maybe something like gross negligence, maybe. I don't know. But he definitely had intent to hurt him. Now, maybe he just wanted to injure him. You know, maybe he didn't straight up want to murder him. You know, maybe he's smarter than that. He knows that that will start a war. But Aemond has been basically trained to. He's been trained by Kristen Cole for a war. He's been talked to by Allison, and I'm assuming Otto Hightower too, to prepare for this war, to prepare his whole life, you know, and he's had this grudge, especially against Lucerys, because he cut his eye out. Uh, Especially for Lucerys, but also just Rhaenyra and her other children too. They are direct um, successors to the throne. They are the biggest challengers. So he's always known and been molded to be ready for war. So you have to take that into consideration also. I just don't see it as an accident. I know he lost control of his dragon, but so did Lucerys, and Arax only blew fire because he's an animal who has his fight or flight triggered, and he sees this big ass dragon who's basically snapping at him, trying to kill him the whole time. And so you can't blame Arax necessarily for breathing some fire. He's like, I'm not I know you're going to fucking kill me. So it's like that fight or flight. An animal is scared, so he lashes out and attacks and defends himself basically. Because the whole time Vagar's trying to eat him. As you see the whole time Vagar wants blood. She wants to kill Arax the whole time. So I don't know. I really like adding some nuance to this situation, more so than him just being a mustache twirling bad guy. And I think it does enough for Aemon's character to where you can see that there's someone in there. He's not just this out and out villain. And of course, I love that. I like some nuance to my villains. I like, the quote unquote bad guys to have some kind of humanity. And I think at the end of the scene, he's looking down because he's like, oh shit, what did I just do? I don't know. I like the idea that they can't control their dragons. I mean, Viserys mentions it, I think, in the first or second episode. He mentions it to someone that, it's an illusion that we can control our dragons. And here you go. This is showing you, especially children. These are teenagers. Aemon's, I think, 19 at this point, but Lucerys is 14. These are basically teenagers who are trying to control these giant, basically nuclear bombs. I mean, what do you expect is going to happen? So I absolutely love the way that they depicted this scene. They definitely could have gone more accurate to the book, where Aemon just supposedly wanted to murder him, and he does just straight up murder him. There's no nuance to it at all. But I like adding a little bit of nuance. Just showing that he did something horrible, and it's the first person he's murdered, and he's broken up about it. I don't know. I like the decision, and I think it makes sense more so than just making him go out and do it on purpose. I like the change, and Aemond is one of my favorite characters in this show, and also in Fire and Blood. I think he's a great villain, and so that's what this is. This is the birth of a true villain, and we'll see what he does next. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. I don't mind changes to the book, again, because you're working with a bunch of rumors. This show is able to do basically show something else, maybe take something from the book and use it, or do something different. Another thing, that whole Storm's End, by the way, can I just say, visually, when Arax breaks the clouds and he's just in the air above the storm, that shot was absolutely beautiful. And can I say also, the dragons looked their best they have ever looked in Game of Thrones or in this show. They definitely spent the budget on this episode, and it shows, because those dragons looked flawless to me. To me, obviously they're fake, they're CGI, but they both looked amazing. And they looked great on the saddles. That's the easiest part that you can pick out with your eye. Like, oh, that's fake. That's, someone who's behind a green screen riding a saddle, but there's no dragon. But for some reason, I don't know how they did it, but they made it look so good, Luke and Um, Also, Rhaenyra writing Syrax earlier in the episode. She looked great on it too. Rhaenyra did. Um, so they definitely spent the budget, and I love it. They looked great, and I love how like horror movie esque, like monster movie, this Storm's End scene felt like, and I love the shot of, you know, all you Lucerys hears Vagar before he sees her, and then as an audience we see Vagar in the clouds above Arax. I just love that shot of him going over Luke and Arax. That was a great shot. Again, really well directed episode by Greg Yatanis. I think is how you say his name. Did a fantastic job with this episode. Um, and I know I said like my favorite scene was also an Aemon scene was Aemon riding Vagar for the first time, which is a fantastic scene, and it's up there with the best of Westeros scenes that we've seen from both Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. And I would say this is my favorite scene. It's not easy. It's easy to get me on your side, but this is definitely the best scene in this show. They pulled it off so well, and I can't wait to see some other dragon stuff that's gonna come up. I know that seeing this, I know like how good it's gonna look. Okay, so we've talked about that enough. I loved this whole episode. Um, the fact that you have who Damon, not Damon, Damon wanting to go to war immediately. He's preparing for war. He's making a bunch of decisions without Rhaenyra. And I like that you have Jace coming to her defense. And Damon, I thought he was going to be a dick about it completely. Just from the way we saw him this whole episode, he was a giant douchebag. And so I liked that they didn't go too far with him, like, because I could have seen them hurting, like making Damon hurt Jace or something. So I like that, how they showed that they made him a dick without making him physically do anything to Jace, which I thought for a second they were gonna do. Um, but yeah, you have Damon who wants war, and you have Rhaenyra, the more level-headed. She, after watching her this episode, I think by the end of the episode it's going to be different. By season 2, you see Rhaenyra's reaction, which, oh my god, what a great shot of her staring. Like, I don't like fourth wall breaks usually, because this was basically a fourth wall break. I mean, she was looking at the audience. I didn't mind it though, because it was a great shot of Rhaenyra. She's crying. It's such great acting from Emma Darcy, which, by the way, they are a powerhouse on this show. They are amazing as Rhaenyra. I think perfect casting, acting wise, and they're doing a fantastic job. And they really brought it this whole episode, acting wise. I mean, I have no complaints about their acting, but yeah, seeing Rhaenyra's reaction, um, I like doing more of it wasn't subtle, because you could see from her movements from behind that she was upset about Luke's death. In the books they said that she, like, got on her knees and she started screaming and crying, when she learned, which they could have gone with, and maybe they tried and it just looked better with what Emma Darcy did, so they went with that shot instead. They might have tried it and it just didn't work. I like the choice. I don't mind a more subtle. You can't see like her reaction, but you can't see her face on reaction, but you can tell like what her face would look like. You know what I mean? I think really like the decision. And in going back, yeah, Rhaenyra shows this episode that I think she is the kind of ruler you would want, especially over Aegon, who's a drunkard. You know, you can see that he's even getting a little corrupted at the end of last week's episode. When the crowd starts cheering him, he's finally getting the acceptance that he feels like he never got from his parent, from Viserys, which he craved. And he even felt like his mom didn't care about him either. And I think this is a good juxtaposition. You see Rhaenyra the whole time trying to continue a peace. Daemon wants to murder Otto when he shows up. Rhaenyra, which such a cool scene where she's coming down on her dragon and landing behind Otto. It's obviously reminiscent of episode 2, when Daemon stole a dragon egg and Otto came to get it back, and Rhaenyra comes too. And it's very reminiscent of that, but just such a powerhouse. I love the part where she just takes off Otto's hand and throws it, says you're a traitor. God, it's so. This is such a great show, and they did such a good job with this last episode. And I love that they split it. So last week we followed the Greens. This week we followed mostly the Blacks. The only time we saw the Greens was Otto, and then we saw Aemond. So I like that decision. It works really well. And next season, I feel like a lot of people that are complaining that this doesn't really feel as big as Game of Thrones will just wait. It's going to get really big. I think next season is going to feel more like Game of Thrones than even this season does. So I think people who are complaining are going to like season 2 a lot more than this season if you find it boring. But I think this is all good setup. This is all setting up the war. They could have started with the dance. They could have started with Viserys dying and then gone into the dance. But with all of this extended prologue and all this setup, you're getting all these character backstories that you would have had to get in exposition. So this way, we're getting to see some of the big events that would have happened. And I also don't mind the time skips, but I've read the book, so I kind of can put together what happened in the past. I know that's a problem for a lot of people, and I totally understand that. But I just love Rhaenyra was a total boss. She showed that she should be queen. I love the fact that she's showing restraint. She doesn't want to go to war immediately. Instead of going to just burn King's Landing and destroy the Greens, she's like, no, we need to make sure that we have allies. We need to make sure that we have House Stark, that we have House Baratheon, that we have House Aaron and House Tully, and all these houses on our side before we start trying to fight a war. We can't do it without the numbers. And oh my God, Corlys coming in, I love that they finally brought Corlys back in. He's been hurt these past few episodes. We haven't seen him. I think it's been 2 episodes. So it was great seeing him again. And I loved the scene with him and Rhaenys, because you can see that he's come around to thinking like her previously. But then you also see that Rhaenys has grown. See, I like that these characters grow. They don't stay the same. They actually go through development. Now Rhaenys is at the point where she sees that Rhaenyra would be a good queen and is trying to foster peace and not, go straight to war like a lot of the men at the table want to do. I like that conversation between Rhaenys and Corlys, because even Corlys says, you were right, I was wrong to care. And you also see some great acting when he finds out that Vaemond is dead. He mentions that Valerian's their biggest weakness is their heedless ambition, I think is what he says. Steve Toussaint is so good. I'm so glad they cast him as Corlys, because he's such a great actor, and he is genuinely one of the characters that you can root for on this show. He's a good man. He's a decent man, and we'll continue to see that hopefully as the show continues. He makes a few mistakes in the books, but mostly I think people are going to root for Corlys, and you can do that. Especially same with Rhaenys. I think we can root for Rhaenys. See, there are a lot of people are complaining about, there's no good guys on this show, and it's about a war, and it's trying to show that both sides are wrong. Both sides have problems. Nobody's perfect. It's not good guys and bad guys. It is more shades of gray. You should care more about what war does to the peasants you know, than wanting to see these two sides fight each other. You should care. And I think they're doing a good job of showing, that, especially with this episode. And then, oh my God, the scene of Corlys coming in, and you do get a confirmation. Well, Rhaenyra does, in the audience gets a confirmation that Corlys does support her. He is on her side, and that is a strong ally to have. Is the Valerians? They are the greatest seafarers in Westeros right now, and it is always a good idea to try and get their alliance, and also that the other scene that really messed with me. I am a father. Was the stillbirth scene. That was hard to watch. I got emotional both times watching it. It's really hard for me to watch because I can't imagine going through that. And it's just it's another great thing to show, to sympathize with Rhaenyra. I think they're trying to show, Alicent isn't as evil as she is in the books. They're adding some nuance to Alicent, which I like, and they're doing the same with Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra by this time in the book is not as sympathetic as she is in this show. She has done some dumb things, like, honestly, if you look at it, her relationship with Harwin was a bad decision, and it threw the realm and gave Alicent a lot of ammunition to go against her. When if she would have made some different decisions, I think would have ended up better. So Rhaenyra's definitely made mistakes, but she's different in the books. But I like the fact that there is someone that you can root for. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. Well, I know, like, from the books, but I don't know what they're going to do with the show because they've already made some changes, so they might do things a little different. But right now, Rhaenyra is a good character that you can root for. You can admit that, yes, she's made some mistakes, but she's a great character, and I love that scene. Love is a strong word, and it's not necessarily the fact that they, showed what they showed, but it was, number one, great acting, but it also shows the horror of birthing children in this world. It still happens today, obviously, but it was really bad back in medieval times, and it was a really powerful scene, and I got emotional, and it's one of my. I find it hard to watch. Both times I found it really hard to watch, so it would not be a scene that I would go back to watch, but it was a very powerful and a really great scene. They did a really great job with it. But it was very graphic, and I can definitely understand if it was hard for a lot of people to watch. I completely understand. Just like in the first episode, it was hard to watch them brutally murder Emma. So it's a similar thing. And yeah, so getting into Daemon and Rhaenyra. So initially, I was bothered by their characterization of Daemon, and I still am a little bit. He's a little different in the books. Not a little different. He's a little bit more gray. In this show, he's been a lot more villainous. We don't know if he murdered his wife in the book. We don't know. Like, they're making a lot of decisions that set him up as a straight up villain. I don't love that, especially the fact that we saw him put his hands on his wife. Hated seeing that. That really fucked with me. But I have to basically separate the book from this show. It is an adaptation of Fire and Blood. It is not a direct retelling of it. And they are being very faithful to most of it. They're just making some decisions on their own because, again, it's basically a choose your own adventure for these writers when you read Fire and Blood. And if you read Fire and Blood, you'll see what I'm talking about. It'll make a lot more sense if you read it. I wouldn't. I would wait until the dance is over so that you can experience it for your own. If you read it, you're gonna know what basically happens coming up. So it's really up to you. Of course, I would recommend it because it is a great book, but it's really up to you. Um, as an audience member, because it's going to be 2 years. It's going to be about a year and a half to 2 years before we see the next season. They're not going to start filming season 2 until early 2023. So we definitely ain't getting it next year. And so the earliest we could get it, again, and it's going to need even more money for the stuff that's going to happen. They're about to show a war. There's a lot of battles. So they're going to need time for CGI and visual effects too. So yeah, it's going to take a while. So 2024, at some point, it's probably going to hit. I hope 2024. I hope we don't have to wait till 2025 because that would suck. But I can see that happening too. But anyways, yeah, this is a great show. Like, oh, going back real quick, I didn't finish. Sorry, I have ADHD, so my brain jumps all over the place. I'm trying to remember all the stuff that I really want to talk about. Yeah, I didn't love Damon putting his hands on Rhaenyra. I think that just, but it shows again, he's already killed his previous wife. Makes sense with this version of Damon, this character in this show, that he would do that. I mean, I don't think people should be totally surprised by that, but that doesn't mean that I don't wish that they did something a little differently. Um, you know, yeah, it's I don't know. Damon this whole episode was more villainous than I think he's been. You know, him just the fact that he wants to immediately go to war and basically kill everyone he needs to secure Rhaenyra on the throne. The fact that he's ignoring her while she's giving birth. She's even calling out for him, and he ignores her. So we really got to see a not that we haven't seen him be evil because we have. Obviously, he's murdered his wife and other people already. But just the fact that I don't know, he just felt so evil this episode to me. Um, Again, great acting. Matt Smith is killing it as Damon. He's amazing as this character, and I love his performance. But I hope they do a little bit more nuance. I was thinking they might be trying to do a Jamie Lannister. You look at the first, basically what 2 seasons, of Jamie. He's very villainous. He's set up as a evil character, and then once he gets caught by Rob, and then he meets Brienne, and he goes on his adventure with her. Especially in the books, you get inside of his head, so he's really fleshed out in the books, and he's my favorite character in the books. And I loved him on the show. Nikolai did a fantastic job as the character. But I think they might be doing a Jamie thing where maybe, first 2 seasons, we see Damon more villainous, and then, it's a slow burn to a more redemptive arc, maybe. So I guess, we'll have to wait and see. I think they might be doing that. Um, yeah, this was just such a great episode. I mean, just all the way through. Um, and one of the best scenes of this episode might be the best episode of the show so far. But you know, Rhaenyra sitting at the, it's her it's Visenya's funeral, and down comes Eric, Sir Eric. He smuggled Rhaenys out. He helped Rhaenys get out, and he got Viserys's crown. And I love that Rhaenyra got Viserys's crown, and Aegon got Aegon the Conqueror's crown. I liked. It was a great scene, and it just shows like the juxtaposition between Aegon's coronation scene and Rhaenyra's, which is it's less people, but and she doesn't have a similar reaction that Aegon has. It is more measured. It's the reaction that you would want from your king or queen. Someone who's like just taking it all in. She's not cheering. I don't even think she smiles. I'm trying to remember. I've seen it twice and I don't remember her really smiling. She's more so like just shocked, like, oh fuck, it's real. Like it's real. I'm queen. Yeah, this again, such a great episode. It was cool seeing Vermithor, I think is his name. Jaehaerys' dragon. Um, and that is a cool setup to season 2, to what's going to come with those riderless dragons. That's going to be I can't wait for that stuff. This show again, like I've been telling everyone who said it's a little slow, don't worry. Season 2 is going to amp things up tenfold. It's going to really feel like Game of Thrones next season. And it is, I can't wait. There's going to be this is going to be such a great show if they can really keep pulling it off like they are. And yeah, there's been some character differences a little bit from book to show, but I don't know. I don't mind them so much because I like nuance. Maybe I'd like a little bit more nuance with Daemon's character. But I don't know. Maybe he'll get more nuanced as the show goes on, similar to Jaime. He is just out and out villain. Not a big fan of it, but hey, this is a show. This isn't the book. And you'll always have the book to go back and read if you guys don't like his characterization. So yeah, this season is up there with Game of Thrones seasons 1 through 4, which are some of my favorite. My favorite Game of Thrones era is that first 4 seasons. I thought they did such a great job adapting the books. They still made a lot of changes in those first 4 seasons, but I think overall it's the best of Game of Thrones, and this show is too. It's up there with those seasons for me, and that's high praise for me. I'm glad that it met my expectations. It met my hype. I was very hyped for this show. This was my show that I was looking forward to the most this year, and I'm just glad that it was so fucking good because I loved every single episode. I had some issues with certain things over the season, and I think we should all praise, Emily Carey and Millie Alcock, who played the younger actresses, and then comes in Emma Darcy, who is amazing as Rhaenyra, and Olivia Cooke, who is amazing as Alicent. Just someone that is nuanced, not as straight up villainous as she is in the books again, but I think it works really well. And so yeah, that's it for House of the Dragon this season. I loved the whole show. It's my favorite show of the year. I'll go ahead and spoil that for you. I'm going to do a top 10 favorite shows at the end of the year, probably in December, January time. And you guys are already spoiled. My number 1 spot is House of the Dragon. If you could tell by my reviews, I love this show. The acting is amazing. The directing is fantastic. I've had some issues with maybe some lighting in certain episodes. They're still shooting things super fucking dark. But I didn't have a problem with this episode with the darkness. I could still tell what was going on. It wasn't like that other episode where, fucking shot for day for night. But I hate that shit. They did a terrible job with that. It reminded me of The Long Night. I didn't mention that in the review. completely spaced and forgot. I just praised that episode the whole time, but that was really a problem for me. The episode where Aemond rides Vhagar. That episode, the lighting was terrible. Can't tell shit. Just wanted to put that out there before I close out. I do have issues with this season. I don't want people to think that I thought it was a perfect 10. It's probably a 9 out of 10. But it's definitely not a perfect 10 out of 10. But it's still my favorite show. Like this video. Comment below. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Let me know what you thought of this season. All I ask is be nice and respectful. Please subscribe. I'm still growing this YouTube channel. And if you like the video, please share it. I'll see you guys next video.